Have you ever wondered what other nations tell their citizens about traveling to the U.S.? Well, we have travel advisory from 9 countries. Welcome back, everyone. So happy to have you back for another update. CNN Travel keeps a check on what the governments of the United States, neighbors, and allies, closest allies, tell their citizens about coming to see us here in the U.S. We're starting with Australia. The Australian government warns its citizens who plan to visit the United States that violent crime is more common than in Australia and gun crime is possible in all areas. They are also encouraged to learn active shooter drills if they live in the U.S. On their Smart Traveler website, the Australian government also reminds would-be travelers that although tourists are rarely targeted, there's always a risk of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That is a true statement no matter where you are. As of August 29th, they do advise their citizens to exercise normal safety precautions in the United States of America. Now, Canada. Canada advises its citizens to take normal security precautions when visiting the U.S. The Canadian government cautions its citizens about crossing the U.S.-Mexico border by car, citing criminal incidents associated with drug trafficking. They are also advised to avoid traveling at night at the border. Also, they are warned about gang and other crime-related violence in large urban areas, noting that violent crime rarely affects tourists, but caution them to be mindful of their surroundings. Good advice, no matter where you are. Now, the government also reminds Canadians of the frequent mass shootings in the U.S., citing that there are incidents of mass shooting resulting most often in casualties. Although tourists are rarely involved, the risk of being in the wrong place at the wrong time exists, they warn. Now, the United Kingdom reminds would-be visitors to America that incidents of mass shooting can occur but account for a very small percentage of homicide deaths. It advises UK citizens to read over an active shooter guide from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. It also advised its citizens that violent crime, including gun crime, rarely involves tourists, but that they should take care when traveling in unfamiliar areas and avoid walking through less traveled areas alone, especially at night. Solid advice no matter where you are. And like Canada, the United Kingdom also cautioned its citizens about the U.S. Mexico border. Now, Israel. Israel is a very security minded country with special ties to the U.S., and they issue warnings on a scale of 1 to 4, with 4 being the highest risk level. Israel's travel warnings are focused more on terrorism and less on general crime worries. For example, people are warned away from North African nation of Algeria, which has a level 4, the highest risk, because of terror groups and hostility towards Israel on the Algerian streets. However, the United States has a level 1 rating, ordinary precautions. Now, France. The United States of France is, they generally advise that the United States of America is among the safest countries, but they do warn French citizens about, again, urban areas and nodes an increase in carjackings in certain areas. The ministry breaks down potential threats to specific neighborhoods in cities. For example, in Boston, they advise it is recommended to avoid traveling alone, on foot, and at night in certain parts of Dorchester, Mattapan, and Roxbury. Now, in Atlanta, they advise French visitors to be vigilant in isolated areas of the city center downtown after they close for business, and to favor using taxi travel at night. Now, Germany is another U.S. ally with strong tourism ties, and it has strict gun laws and a much lower rate of firearm homicides compared with the United States. Its Ministry of Foreign Affairs tells German citizens that it is easy to obtain guns in the United States, leading to increased use of guns and occasional killing sprees. The number of arms and ammunition purchases has increased significantly during COVID-19, they advise their citizens. They also warn would-be visitors to the U.S. about possibilities of domestic clashes over racism and police violence, advising them to avoid gatherings of people in the vicinity of which violence could possibly occur. Now, Mexico. The Mexican government had warnings that historical, racial, and ethnic tension, including opposition to immigration, have led to attacks by violent extremist groups, and advised its citizens to avoid large crowds in the United States. As of August 28th, the site no longer carried any warnings about mass shootings or general crime in the United States. However, visitors planning a trip to Florida were cautioned about the state's new immigration law, specifically about transporting people to the state who aren't in the United States illegally. Now, moving on to Japan. The government warns that it is important to recognize that the security situation is very different between the United States and Japan, and to understand what kind of crime victims are at risk in what areas. They are advised that one of the main security concerns in the United States is gun crime, and offer a lot of advice for getting out of or hunkering down in possible active shooter situations, including find security exits in new places and have an evacuation plan. That they advise to hide in a room and barricade the door using heavy furniture, and to keep quiet and mute cell phones if they find themselves in those situations. New Zealand. As of August 28, Australia's island neighbor had an exercise increased caution level from 2 to 4 alert for the U.S. due to the threat of terrorism. New Zealand's safe travel website goes on to warn its citizens that there is a higher incidence of violent crime and firearm possession than in New Zealand, and in many states it is legal for United States citizens to openly carry firearms in public. It suggests that people coming to the United States research their specific destination before traveling and seek local advice, which is good advice no matter where you are traveling to. Please share with us in the comments how you're feeling